All right. It's Thursday night. Impact just ended. Rosemary just became the Knockouts champion. So I'm in a really good mood about that, but unfortunately, my good mood is not destined to last very long because now I have to talk about Heroes versus Aliens. Been waiting quite a while for this. For the record, I did not get around to watching the Supergirl installment, which apparently was part one. Not really sure why, because felt like the story kind of started with the Flash, but whatever. Also, I did not talk. I didn't see the final leg of it because I was watching Impact tonight. But anyway, before we get to Heroes versus Aliens, before we get to that, I gotta let that one bubble up a little bit because believe me, I have a few things to say about that. But before we do that, once again, the spoiler warning is in effect. Please don't post spoilers in the chat room as a courtesy to people who don't like to be spoiled. And also, I have to cover, before we get to the big crossover, I have to cover The Flash because there was an episode the previous week that I didn't get to because that was the only new show that aired that week. And I couldn't do it on Thursday because I was busy. So I figured rather than do it on a different day, like a Friday when everybody's out doing stuff, I figured I'd just save it for this week. Cover it this week. So the first we have to cover The Flash, Season 3, Episode 7. So this is before the big crossover. This is Killer Frost. I actually have a bunch of things to say about this one too, believe it or not. Yeah, I know, you're shocked, I can tell. Okay, here we go. Oh, God. So, Barry fights Savitar, and it's not going so well. So the team decides that the only thing they can do, their only course of action, is to have Cisco teleport Caitlin to the fight so she can freeze Savitar, even though they all know that using her powers causes Caitlin to turn evil. Not surprisingly, Caitlin uses her powers and then turns evil. So she kidnaps Julian and threatens him to science a way for her to track down Alchemy, who she believes might be able to take her powers away. She reveals that Barry's time traveling got Cisco's brother killed, and Cisco is none too happy about that. And then they do a Killer Frost vibe fight, which would have been a lot cooler if it weren't for the shitty way it was all executed. But anyway, they capture Caitlin, and Barry tells her that they won't abandon her, and then proceeds to lock her in a cell by herself and slam the door in her face. Then Joe, who, may I remind you, is supposed to be the level-headed one on this team, tries to cut Wally out of his Terrigenesis cocoon, even though that could have killed Wally for all he knew. But no, Wally comes out of it with speed powers of his own now, but the powers are unstable or something, so naturally he speeds away instead of staying right in the lab where they can help him. So Barry lets Caitlin out, and they figure out how to help Wally, and they find him and give him a shot, and then just like that, he's fine. All he needed was a little shot. Wow, that was easy. Then Barry convinces Julian to not tell the cops about how Caitlin did a whole bunch of illegal shit, but the catch is that Barry has to leave the police force. And maybe real justice does actually exist in this universe because Barry agrees to this. Also, Julian is Alchemy. Because the writers couldn't think of a surprising reveal for Alchemy's identity, so instead it just turned out to be the most obvious fucking thing possible. And then, thankfully, mercifully, the episode is over. Wow. Okay, first of all, I have to say how much I just hate how they are handling this Caitlin storyline. There were a lot of ways for them to tease her becoming a supervillain, but why they had to do the most shallow, stupid, and frankly lazy way possible, I couldn't tell you. Here's how a good writer would have done this. Okay? When the series begins, You introduce Caitlyn as a character who generally tries to be a good person, tries to do the right thing, wants to do the right thing, but nevertheless has some issues, has some personal demons that she struggles with, like many people do. And then over the course of 3 seasons, things happen to her that cause her to grow angry, frustrated, bitter. Things like her fiancé/husband, the man she loved, tragically dying twice, and then her new love interest betraying her and turning out to be a murdering psychopath who nearly destroyed the multiverse. Stuff like that. Maybe she already had her share of issues to begin with, but then you start piling all this stuff on top of her, and it just starts to become more than she can handle. Over time, she starts unraveling a little bit, starts breaking under the strain of all this shit that the universe keeps shoveling on top of her. She still wants to be a good person, but she's finding that harder and harder to do. Then she gets powers. Then maybe something happens to push her over the edge, like she loses control of her powers and accidentally kills her mother after going to her for help or something like that. And that's the straw that breaks the camel's back. And instead of fighting her personal demons, she finally just succumbs to them and chooses to go down a dark path that the team has to pull her away from. They could still do the same story they did here for the most part. They could still have Barry be responsible for Caitlyn getting powers, even though that makes no fucking sense at all. Except now it would feel like they really earned this Caitlyn turns evil story instead of her changing from a good person to murderously evil within the span of 1 episode because her powers just magically turned her evil for some reason that they don't even bother explaining. Even though having powers didn't affect any of the other metahumans that way. Do you see where I'm coming from here? Do you see how this Caitlyn thing is so completely lazy and half-assed? I wouldn't be surprised at all to find out that they never even had a plan for how Caitlyn would become Killer Frost until they broke these last few episodes and then decided to do it just on a whim. Because there was zero planning here. She just gets powers from out of nowhere, even though they already established that she doesn't have the metagene, and I already explained in detail how Flashpoint could not account for that plot hole, and then she just turns evil for seemingly no reason at all. This is fucking stupid. As was most of this episode, actually. Let's talk about that, shall we? So, Barry is fighting Savitar, and he's losing. Not out of the ordinary. This happens a lot when he's fighting a metahuman, but whatever. So, very quickly, the team decides that there is no choice. There's absolutely no choice but for Cisco to teleport him and Caitlyn to the fight and use powers to take Savitar down. Okay, first of all, I missed the part where Cisco is a teleporter now. Did he just discover that he has this power off-screen at some point? I mean, when the hell did this become a thing? Yeah, we know that he can traverse dimensions, but that's not the same thing. He's never displayed this power before, and yet they all just assume that he can do it for some reason. And then he does it perfectly on his first try. Yeah, that sure is how that works. By the way, Cisco being a teleporter now is going to create all sorts of plot holes. Just you wait. Second of all, why the fuck was this Plan A? Why was it Plan A? Iris literally begs Caitlyn to turn her use them and you turn evil powers on Savitar because that is the only way to save Barry. Never mind the fact that Barry has been in plenty of fights with other speedsters before, and this is hardly the worst situation he's ever been in. Why was this particular fight suddenly so desperate that the only way to possibly save Barry was for Caitlyn to do something that would destroy her psychologically? Shouldn't they have considered their other options first instead of going straight to the last resort? Oh wait, I forgot. That's what smart characters would have done. Never mind. I guess I was asking too much of this band of idiots. What's next? Oh, Joe roughs up one of Alchemy's goons in police custody in full view of the security camera, which qualifies as police brutality, so that would probably be the end of his career on another show. Now, I don't blame Joe for freaking out and losing his cool here. But how much do you want to bet that this will never even be mentioned again? Even though it was caught on the security camera and should get Joe suspended from the force, if not worse. At least it would on a competently written show. You know, Joe doing this, I would have been fine with if I wasn't completely sure that it was just going to be swept under the rug and forgotten. But the real issue came when Joe just decided to cut Wally out of that cocoon. Now, I know Joe was desperate to do something. That's his son in there. But what in God's name was he thinking? He has no idea what this thing is. For all he knows, cutting Wally out of that cocoon could have been more dangerous than leaving him in there. I mean, hell, it could have killed him. Joe didn't know it wouldn't kill him. But don't worry, Joe. Wally comes out of it just fine. He just needs a shot, and then he's awesome. Just one shot, that was all it took. And then his powers worked just fine, so that sure was resolved quickly and easily. But back to Caitlin. If there's a silver lining about this episode, it's that Caitlin reveals how Barry's time traveling caused Cisco's brother to die. It's out there now. Which means that for once, Barry is actually going to have to account for one of his fuck-ups. That's a very good thing. The problem is that this only happens in the first place because Caitlin spilled the beans on him. Up until now, Barry seemed perfectly happy to just keep that a secret. He didn't appear tortured by it at all, really. So, while Barry does have to take accountability for what his actions in Flashpoint caused, he's only doing it because Caitlin forced him to, not because he thought that owning up to it was the right thing to do, which means that once again, Barry doesn't learn anything. Okay, yes, Barry did need to come clean to Cisco. I'm glad that happened. But it should have been his decision to do it, not because someone ratted him out. What they're telling us here is that Barry probably would have never come clean to Cisco if this hadn't happened. It didn't seem like he had any intention to do so until Caitlin blabbed about it. That doesn't make Barry a better character who learned a valuable lesson. It just makes him an asshole. And I don't like saying that, believe me. I'm so frustrated I'm having trouble articulating this. I want to like Barry. I do. I want him to learn and grow and become a better character. But all they seem to do is make him more and more of a detestable piece of shit. Look at what he does with Caitlin here. They put her in the metahuman cell. Okay, Barry tells her that they're not going to abandon her, and the next thing he does, literally the very next thing he does, is just shut the door on her and leaves her in there by herself. And it doesn't stop there, because even in those rare moments when Barry actually does seem to be trying to do the right thing, it's immediately ruined either by someone telling him not to do the right thing, or by him just being an idiot. They need Caitlin to help Wally. I guess she's the only one who can come up with this formula that he needs to live, or whatever. So Barry decides to let Caitlin out of her cell. He says that she can leave, but the thing is, she has to kill him to do it. And then she can just walk out. Noble and self-sacrificing? Yes. Unbelievably stupid and completely unnecessary? Also yes. This entire scene was fucking pointless. Instead of giving her the very real chance to kill him when she already tried to kill him just a few minutes earlier with that frozen kiss thing, why the fuck couldn't he just put the power-dampening cuffs on her? Think about this for a minute. The powers are making her evil, so just put the cuffs on her to dampen her powers, ergo, she's not evil anymore. The fact that she was wearing the cuffs at the end of the episode proves that this was a viable option, so why on God's green earth doesn't Barry just do that instead of giving Caitlin the chance to stab him to death with an icicle? Because Barry is a dumbass. But, you know that other thing that I said ruins the times when Barry tries to do the right thing? Yeah. Fucking Iris, Jesus Christ. I cannot stand Iris right now. This whole episode, Barry is finally starting to feel some guilt about how his self-centeredness and immaturity caused him to fuck up so many people's lives. And Iris keeps consoling him like, oh, you can't blame yourself, Barry. You were just hurting. It's not your fault. Fuck you. Fuck you. Barry can and should blame himself because this entire shitstorm is absolutely 100% his fault, or haven't you been paying attention, Iris? Even at the end, when Julian tells Barry that he'll keep quiet about Caitlin, with the caveat being that Barry has to leave the police force, Julian gives his reasons for wanting Barry to resign, and you know what? They're good reasons. Julian is not wrong about any of this. Now, whether she's a good person or in her right mind or not, Caitlin did some very illegal shit and was really close to doing a lot worse. Now, in any kind of just society, there would be repercussions for this because crimes have been committed here. Now, maybe Caitlin would have been found innocent due to temporary insanity or whatever isn't the point. The point is, she's a danger to herself and others in this state. Just because Caitlin is Barry's friend and a good person, Barry wants her to get off scot-free and not have to face the music for what she did, even though she just showed how dangerous she can be if she ever takes those cuffs off. And if that's Barry's mindset, then you know what? I'm with Julian. He doesn't belong on the force. And then there's Iris telling us what a dick Julian is for doing this, and Barry belongs on the force and blah, blah, blah. Fuck you, Iris. Julian made a really good point here, and the show idiotically is trying to frame him as the bad guy for making it doesn't change that. Mercifully, Barry does actually resign, even if it's out of a sense of guilt and responsibility, but it's like Barry is trying to turn toward the light, trying to become a better character for once, and then there's Iris trying to drag him away from it. She's just trying to drag him right back. And honestly, if this is what Iris's role is on the show now, then I really wish they would just kill her off. Especially since just one freaking kiss where Caitlin is literally trying to kill Barry with cold is still way hotter than anything he's done with Iris up to this point. And then we find out that Julian is alchemy. And not only that, but he keeps the alchemy costume in the lab where anyone could find it. You know, ever since this season started, I was hoping that they wouldn't do this. I kept saying, I really hope they don't make Julian alchemy because it's such an obvious way to go. He's the first person every fan is pointing to when they try to figure out who alchemy is. Don't have him be alchemy. Do something different. Do something creative. Do something unexpected. And then they went and did it. And it was the most predictable thing in the goddamn world. You know, last season, when S.H.I.E.L.D. did the Andrew is Lash reveal, it wasn't the most shocking reveal in history because there were subtle clues hidden in a number of episodes, and when you put all the pieces together, you could kind of narrow it down to just a few suspects. But at least there was effort there. I mean, there was an actual mystery that you had to use your brain to figure out. They established Andrew in the previous season, they made us care about him in ways unrelated to the Inhuman thing, and then they carefully laid the trail of breadcrumbs, and when they did the big reveal, it felt like they earned it. Here, the Flash writers might as well have just put a giant flashing neon sign right next to Julian's head that reads, "I am alchemy! I am alchemy!" And instead of it being a big red herring, they just did the most obvious thing in the goddamn world. Like they're writing for fucking 5-year-olds or something. You know, it's really bizarre. To switch gears for a second, it's really bizarre how Wally getting his Kid Flash powers feels like almost an afterthought in this episode. I thought they were going to make that a much bigger deal. Ideally, you'd want Wally becoming a speedster to get his own episode and not shoved into the B-plot of a Caitlin becomes Killer Frost storyline. You know, they've got at least 2 episodes worth of story here crammed into one, and unfortunately the Wally stuff is a lot worse off for it. You know, Caitlin is magically off the hook and looks like she'll be just fine as long as she keeps the cuffs on, but you know, thankfully Yeah, Cisco resenting Barry for his brother being dead is not tied up neatly by the end of the episode, so that's something Barry is going to have to deal with. Also, Barry is still off the force, which I like, but since Barry technically owns Star Labs, as per Harrison Wells' will in Season 2, it's not like he'll be struggling to make rent or anything, so I doubt it'll change that much. The really ironic thing about the whole Killer Frost situation is that if you look at it in a vacuum, I think most of what they did with it here could have worked. I just think the way they got to this point was incredibly lazy and insulting. And then there's Iris trying to stop Barry from learning anything, stop Barry from learning anything from this experience, making me want to punch her in the face, quite frankly. And all the other problems with this episode, like Caitlin calling Flash Barry right in front of a bunch of cops that Barry works with every day, which I'm sure is just going to get swept under the rug, along with the Joe roughing up a criminal in police custody thing. And it all adds up to a really regrettable combination. So needless to say, I did not like this episode. I think this really would have benefited, I mean, if for no other reason than to elevate the Wally subplot, this really needed to be 2 episodes. Devote an entire episode to Caitlin becoming Killer Frost, and then an entire episode to Wally becoming a speedster. Because the Wally stuff really just got shoved into the backseat. It almost felt like an afterthought. And that's stupid, because that's a really major plot point that just happened. And I think Wally deserved better, and quite frankly, so did we. And, wow, I really went off on that one, didn't I? And okay, it seems like a lot of this stuff is just them skipping right to Heroes versus Aliens. So let's do the Heroes versus Aliens stuff, and then I'll go to the chat room, okay? Because I went off on that episode of The Flash for quite a while. So let's get caught up. Flash. Season 3, Episode 8, Invasion, I guess Part 2. What could have possibly happened in Part 1 on Supergirl to prepare them for this? I didn't watch that episode of Supergirl, but it felt like the whole story just really kicked off in The Flash. So what could have possibly happened in Supergirl? That's beats me. Maybe you guys can explain that one to me. Anyway, Invasion Part 2. Aliens crash land on Earth, so Barry rounds up Team Arrow and the Legends of Tomorrow and Supergirl to help stop them. He doesn't even assess the threat first. He just sees a little ship full of aliens. Oh, well, I need to bring in every superhero I can. Because the military can't stop these things, even though I don't know anything about them, so I'm just talking out of my ass. But yeah, so he rounds up everybody across all 4 shows. Along the way, he finally owns up to Flashpoint, but the writers somehow managed to screw even that up. The aliens abduct the president, which doesn't come off as nearly as big a deal as it probably should. Shit goes horribly wrong, and then all the heroes except Barry get beamed aboard the Enterprise or something. Barry and Supergirl, rather. On the surface, there are some big fangasm type things here. Alright, yes, it is really cool to see all these superheroes in the same place, teaming up for the first time. Yes, it is really cool to see Thea back in costume for one more adventure as Speedy. Yes, it was really cool to see Oliver and Barry having to fight all the other heroes. Yes, the action sequences are very impressive. But hell, we expect that by now. That's the one thing these DC shows never seem to have a problem with, is action. And yes, it is great to see Barry actually feeling real guilt about how he fucked up a lot of other people's lives in Flashpoint. These are all good things. So on the surface, you'd think this was a really good episode, right? But no. No. Because if you actually think about what's going on here, there are so many things that just jump out, just jump off the screen and make me wish this episode had a neck so I could strangle it to death. Alright, the very first scene of this episode is a mini flash forward in a war zone where Oliver calls Barry team leader. Yeah. Yeah, they made Barry team leader. They made Barry team leader. Right then and there, I knew what I was in for. I fucking knew. I knew where this was going, and it wasn't going anywhere good. I don't know how on earth this brain trust of slack-jawed nincompoops thinks Barry fucking Allen is the best choice to lead them all against an alien invasion, but this was the first sign that something was horribly wrong. Not that there were a lot of better choices to pick from, because this episode seemed determined to make me hate as many of these assholes as it possibly could. There's a scene here where Barry finally comes clean to everybody about Flashpoint, about what was changed, whose lives were affected, baby Sarah getting retconned out of existence, and all that stuff. And the other characters rightfully berate Barry for this. They let him have it. They tell him what an idiotic, immature, selfish, reckless dumbass he was for changing the timeline for his own personal gain with zero regard for how it would affect the future, how it could change everything, right? And all that would have been fabulous if it hadn't been said by the cast of Legends of Tomorrow. You know, the show where the cast radically changes the past in horrifying ways every single week, while somehow not changing the timeline in any fucking way whatsoever, even though Jay Garrick explained quite clearly just a few episodes ago that this is not how time travel works. Sarah is trying to act like some kind of expert, saying that you can't just go back and change things, Barry. And I know what I'm talking about because I understand the risks of fucking around with past events, because of how it can change the future and whatnot. Really, Sarah? Really? You understand the risks? Really? You know that, Sarah? That's funny, because I seem to remember the Legends of Tomorrow team traveling to the past and murdering multiple people, thus retconning all their ancestors out of existence, setting off 2 nuclear explosions, and, let's not forget, crippling the fucking Pentagon. And that was just the stuff that happened before I stopped watching. Now, did any of these things affect or change the timeline in any way whatsoever? No. Everything was exactly the fucking same, just as they'd left it. So please excuse me if I'm having a little trouble taking Sarah seriously as she lectures Barry about the consequences of fucking with time travel. I mean, Jesus Christ, writers! Was it your intention to make the Legends of Tomorrow cast look like the biggest hypocrites to ever live since the first multi-celled organism crawled out of the primordial ooze? There's not having a leg to stand on, and then there's this. Writers this stupid shouldn't be allowed to breathe the same air as the rest of us. My God. Oh. But the LOT team wasn't alone. They weren't the only despicable assholes that I wanted to shoot in the face here, because believe it or not, Barry might have been even more infuriating. Okay? First, Barry finds this message from future Barry saying that he can't be trusted on this mission, or whatever. And actually, he does... he actually chooses to keep this information to himself, knowing that this might jeopardize the mission and put his teammates in harm's way until Cisco tells him what an asshole he is for doing so. Only then does he mention it. So this is where Barry finally comes clean about Flashpoint, and how his selfishness and immaturity fucked up so many people's lives, and, hey, Dig, sorry about that daughter you never had because of me. And thank God for Dig, at least his reaction to this you could take seriously. But it didn't stop there, because they still managed to infect Team Arrow with this lunacy somehow. Barry is finally acknowledging how badly he fucked up, finally chastising himself for recklessly changing the past for his own personal gain, which ended up hurting and killing so many people. And what is Oliver's advice to him? You need to stop beating yourself up, Barry. No. 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 That is bullshit. That is bullshit. Barry should beat himself up. He should feel like the worst person in the world because he did a horrible, horrible thing, and he needs to take responsibility for that, goddammit. This is the first time since Flashpoint that the full weight of what he did is finally dawning on him, and the first time that he's making some kind of an effort to take ownership of it, you're telling him to stop? What the fuck? It's bad enough that he only came clean to everyone in the first place because Cisco guilted him into it, as opposed to Caitlin spilling the beans as a way to hurt him last time. What the shit is going on? What in God's name are these characters thinking? First Iris, and now Oliver of all people, trying to let Barry off the hook for this. He doesn't deserve to be let off the hook. Don't you fucking understand that? He needs to live with the consequences of what he did. He dug his grave, and now he has to lie in it. That's how this shit works! I am baffled. Absolutely fucking baffled at the character work on display here. This was frustrating almost to the point of madness! I really can't comprehend what's going through these writers' minds. Barry never seems all that bothered by the Flashpoint thing until someone who got fucked over as a result of it reminds him that he should feel guilty, and the second he does actually start feeling guilty, he's got other characters in his ear telling him that he shouldn't. And then later on, the whole team decides to ignore future Barry's warning that Barry of the present can't be trusted because obviously someone from the future wouldn't know something that they don't, right? Fuck that noise. Well, I can't wait to find out how that resolved itself. And somehow, some way, they still managed to arrive at a great climax that deserved a much better episode leading up to it. The aliens are mentally controlling the others, turning them against Green Arrow and the Flash, so Oliver and Barry have to fight their own team. And this part was actually pretty fucking awesome. Flash versus Supergirl was awesome. Mostly because Barry was actually using his head and not acting like a dumbass for once. But like I said, action has never been a problem for these shows. We expect the action to be good. What we need is for the story and the characters to be of similar quality. And unfortunately, that's where this episode just drops off a cliff. There were a lot of other things that I didn't even mention yet, like Wally reaching Mach 2 and not time traveling because the rules of time travel that the writers set up only apply when they want them to. Like Stein having flashbacks to the daughter that he has now thanks to Flashpoint, instead of thinking that his daughter always existed, which they'd already established is how those Flashpoint changes are supposed to fucking work. Like the entire team walking right into the most obvious trap in the history of traps. Like Barry whining that him and Iris might not end up together in the future when the president has just been abducted by fucking aliens. Jesus Christ, was there anything else? Probably, but I'm fucking spent at this point. Look, the cool factor of seeing these heroes together for the first time and some admittedly awesome action sequences weren't nearly enough to redeem this fiasco. From a writing standpoint, this ranged everywhere from mediocre to downright offensive. I guess the only silver lining is that it can only get better from here. Oh, boy. Yeah, apparently Barry altering time caused some kind of disaster on another planet and the aliens retaliated, hence invasion. From the way they described it, they were afraid he'd erase history or something. Oy. Um, Actually, you know what? I changed my mind. Let's do Arrow first, and then I'll discuss what I learned from Twitter about the final leg of this crossover, and then we'll cover it all in the chat room as one big block. How about that? That's because I think there's some information here about what happened in part 4, and I'm just going to end up confusing myself. So let's do Arrow first. It's Arrow season 5, episode 8, Invasion Part 3. So the Dominators put Team Arrow in the Matrix. Literally, that's what happened. They're in the Matrix, living completely different lives, but they start to remember their old lives because apparently this Matrix is pretty shoddy. They escape because this Matrix is so shoddy that it has an exit door. They get off the Dominator spaceship in an escape pod or something, and they get picked up by the Wave Rider because I guess Cisco couldn't teleport that far, even though he can teleport between dimensions. And now a giant Dominator mothership is headed for Earth. Alright, I'll say this for Arrow's leg of this 4-part crossover. It was better than The Flash. It wasn't terribly good, but it was better than The Flash. In a strange turn of events, while The Flash had a lot of very impressive action set pieces, but insultingly bad character work and a ton of plot holes, Arrow had some pretty average action sequences, but very good character work and a ton of plot holes. And with the character work, this episode really excels. It's the 100th episode, and they treat it as an homage to everything that's come before. You see former cast members returning, Laurel, Oliver's parents, Malcolm Merlyn, Damien Dark, Deathstroke. There's a mention of Tommy in there. I mean, there's references to past events and lines from the pilot. Just tons and tons of Easter eggs for longtime viewers, and it's really cool stuff, actually. I liked seeing a lot of the old characters, and the heartstrings they pulled on there were really genuine. I mean, the parents showing up, that was a big moment. So... yeah, and they really milk that for the emotional gravitas that it deserves. So, the whole point of this simulation, I guess, is to give Oliver and Team Arrow the lives they always wanted in order to take them off the board. It doesn't explain why Dig still seems miserable, but whatever. And, of course, that begs the question, if the Dominators were going to go to all this trouble just to neutralize Team Arrow, why not just kill them? And I don't have an answer to that. I have no idea. In fact, if what I learned on Twitter about Part 4 is true, that makes this even more confusing. More on that in a minute. So apparently the Dominators got the really cheap version of the Matrix because all the characters start remembering their lives very quickly and very easily. It just takes like one little jolt to do it. Like somebody going up to them and say, hey, what did you do yesterday? What's the last thing you remember? And then suddenly all their memories just come flooding back. And that begs the question of why wouldn't the Dominators drop Dig in another city or something to prevent him and Oliver from running into each other? Because that's what starts this whole domino effect. Dig is the Green Arrow in the Matrix. So Oliver sees him, and then all of a sudden Oliver's just starting to remember everything. Well, if it was that easy, wouldn't the Dominators make more of an effort to keep Dig away from Oliver? Again, I don't know. I guess the Dominators aren't that bright. So once the characters start remembering things, the plot kind of falls apart. But before that, we do get some really good scenes. I love that upon learning that this life might not be real, Oliver's first instinct is to hold onto it with a white knuckle grip to to just run off with Laurel and elope and take over the company because he's happy here. He's got everything he wants and he doesn't want to lose it. But as he starts remembering more, he remembers who he was in real life. He realizes that he's got no choice because he's not doing this for a reward. He's doing it because he wants to do the right thing. That's what being the Green Arrow is about. But he's still tempted, and it's still a hard decision. But he gets to hug his parents, and we actually see Oliver getting a little emotional here, which almost never happens. And it's one of the more poignant moments we've seen on this show in a long time. And I get why Thea was so tempted to stay, actually. I do. I didn't agree with it, but I got it. I get why she wouldn't want to go back. Their lives are a living hell. But this Matrix reality is like their reward for everything they've been through. Now, it was pretty silly that Oliver left her there for the Dominators to do God knows what to her, but after after they left, the whole simulation was probably just going to shut down anyway, so it doesn't matter. And then them all fighting their past villains in one big battle was really cool. And then Oliver and Sarah get to say goodbye to Laurel, which is another really poignant scene. And, the drama, the emotion there works. It's not the real Laurel, but the emotions it invokes in Oliver and Sarah is real. And it feels very powerful. But once they stop with the character stuff and get back to advancing the story again, things just get really stupid really quickly. They figure out that the way out of the Matrix has got to be the Smoke Technologies building because no such building should exist. Now, you'd think that would be a really fucking huge design flaw that the Dominators overlooked, and you'd be right. They can duplicate everything else so perfectly because they're drawing from the memories of everybody on the team, but for some reason, they didn't know that Felicity never had a building with her name on it. They can duplicate everything else so perfectly, but they didn't know that there was no such thing as a Smoke Technologies building. Why? Can you explain more, show? I didn't get that at all. The Dominators really had to work hard to screw up that badly. The only thing that would make sense to me would be if one of the Dominators was working against his own people and put that in there in the hopes that Team Arrow would figure it out and escape. Nothing else makes any sense to me because there's basically a big fucking exit door in the Matrix with a giant sign leading them right to it. Why was it there? Why was there a way out at all? Apparently because the Dominators are just really, really stupid. Well, they should fit right in with Team Flash. Okay, then when they're about to leave, the Matrix shows Oliver this vision of all his friends and family telling him how proud of him they are. An emotional moment for Oliver, yes, but it made no sense. Why is the Matrix showing him this? It's showing him all these people from his past that he loved, saying how proud they are of what he's doing, that he's sacrificing his happiness to go and do the right thing and be a hero and blah, blah, blah. But why would the Matrix do that if the whole point is to get Oliver to stay in the Matrix? If anything, this is just encouraging him to leave. So, why would the Dominators put that in the simulation when it's doing the exact opposite of what they want? None of this adds up at all. So, they come out of the Matrix, and wouldn't you know it, there's weapons with easy access just lying around because it wouldn't have been a good idea by the Dominators to put those in a safe place in case Team Arrow escaped that easily escapable trap or anything. So, yeah, the Dominators are idiots. So the team get into an escape pod and fly out. Meanwhile, back on Earth, their friends are trying to figure out where they are. And Curtis, get this, Curtis has the idea to get their location by hacking Dominator technology. Yeah, that's his plan. To download information from an alien device. Because apparently the Dominators use the same OS as us. Wow, that is a weird coincidence. It's actually kind of hilarious how easy this is. Curtis actually has a gizmo that can interface with Dominator tech. Like it's some everyday contraption you just have lying around the house. And it's actually compatible. He plugs the fucking thing right in, doesn't even need a USB cable or anything. I guess Curtis just really believes in being prepared in case Earth is ever invaded by fucking aliens who inexplicably seem to shop at the same Radio Shack as us primitive humans. But anyway, the gizmo overloads or blows up or something, so Supergirl and Flash and Wild Dog have to get some device from this really convenient tech-based metahuman whose name escapes me right now, if they ever bothered to give her one. I don't remember. And this whole sequence really feels like it's just there to pad the episode out. I mean, I would have preferred that they cut this and focus more on the character stuff with the team in the Matrix, because that's where the real meat of this episode was anyway. But it was harmless and inoffensive, and no one did anything really stupid, so I'll let it slide, I guess. So anyway, they get the gizmo from this woman, and they hack the alien tech really, really easily, by the way. And they find out where the team is, because it actually gives them longitude and latitude coordinates of a fucking alien spaceship. Good God, could this get any more absurd? So the Wave Rider picks up their escape pod before they get blown to pieces, because I guess Cisco just forgot that he could teleport them out of there. Or maybe he was in the bathroom or something, I don't know. And then, oh no, there's a giant mothership heading toward Earth. Well, you know what? If the Dominators manning that ship are half as stupid as the ones who allowed Team Arrow to escape so easily, I'm not that worried. Well, the story still sucks, but this was a step up from the Flash's part of this crossover, because there were some genuinely affecting poignant moments here. But the thing is, those moments worked because that was Arrow just focusing on being Arrow. I mean, yeah, the whole thing of them being in the Matrix was because of this horribly written crossover, but the character dynamics, the dramatic emotional moments, that was Arrow just doing its thing like it normally does, and that's why that stuff worked. It didn't work on the Flash because those characters are incompetently drawn more often than not. Thankfully, the Arrow writers are a little more on the ball when it comes to that type of stuff. So when Arrow was just being Arrow, this episode was pretty good. Very good, even. When it went back to the crossover-related stuff, that's when it got stupid. And unfortunately, I have not been impressed with this Heroes vs. Aliens crossover event. It's like they took this all sizzle, no steak mentality when they were planning it out. And on the surface, there's plenty of eye candy for the mindless fanboys to jerk off to. But it's like they thought that was all they needed. Because if you actually think about what's happening, there's very little substance behind any of this. It's like they had a bunch of really cool action set pieces in mind and then just filled in the blanks of the story around all that stuff. So there's one more leg of the crossover after this that aired on Legends of Tomorrow tonight, which happened during Impact, so I didn't see it. And I wouldn't have watched it anyway because Legends of Tomorrow sucks. But I did hear about this because my Twitter peeps helped me out. And after learning some things about the episode, I'm really glad I didn't watch because it sounded downright insulting. So let me get this straight. Apparently, the Dominators attacked Earth because Barry's time traveling in Flashpoint affected the timeline on their world. How does that possibly make any sense at all? How could Barry stopping a murder and then later allowing the murder to take place affect something that happens on another planet? In another solar system, in a different galaxy? How could it possibly affect that? How could the fucking ripple effect affect something that's not even on Earth? What the fuck is... It's... Okay, look. So the Dominators invade Earth because Barry's time traveling affected their planet somehow. So Barry was the cause of all this. Wow, Barry fucks up everything. Yeah, there's a shocker. So this was all Barry's fault. Because his time traveling screwed things up somehow. How is that possible? Okay. Okay, so their rationale is that Barry's time traveling fucked up the entire universe. Okay, so be it. It's stupid, it makes no sense at all, but so be it. Here's what I don't get. What Barry did to create Flashpoint and then reverse Flashpoint was actually a very minor thing, all things considered. Okay? What he did was he stopped the murder of his mother, and then later stopped himself from stopping the murder of his mother, thus allowing the murder of his mother to take place the way it was always supposed to. So in actuality, Barry changed nothing at all. But even changing nothing at all caused the timeline to change in some pretty dramatic ways. So you would think that whenever you're time traveling, at any point, you're like this close to becoming like a bull in a china shop and just fucking the timeline up in catastrophic ways. Like you step on a bug and suddenly, the clone of Mussolini is president or something. I don't fucking know. But here's where that all falls apart, because then you've got Legends of Tomorrow who fuck up the timeline constantly. They've murdered people. They've set off nukes. They've crippled the Pentagon in a time of war. They blew up a Russian prison. I think there was an episode this season where they were killing zombies during the Civil War or some shit. You're telling me that Barry stopping one murder and then allowing that murder to take place anyway affected the timeline so dramatically that it wreaked havoc on an alien planet, but the Legends of Tomorrow wreaking havoc in the past changed nothing at all. How in the world do you explain that? If anything, shouldn't the Legends of Tomorrow team have been the cause of all this? Shouldn't the aliens have been focused on those assholes? Wouldn't that make... You know what? It wouldn't have made sense anyway, but how does this affect another... How does time traveling on Earth affect... How does the ripple effect reach another fucking planet? What kind of sense does that make? This is absolutely asinine. What the... you know what? Let's see what you guys had to say about this, because I'm at my wit's end with this shit. CW lied about it being a 4-night crossover. The Supergirl episode was just a con to get people to watch the mid-season finale. Flash shows up for about 50 seconds, and it's the same scene they showed on The Flash. No need to watch it. Seriously? Oh, fuck those guys, man. Are you fucking serious? They build this as a 4-night crossover, and then they just... Supergirl's episode plays no part in it. They just tack on the beginning of Flash to the end of Supergirl, and then just air the same fucking thing again? Oh, fuck those guys, man. That is so fucking cheap. I mean, if you didn't have a real organic way to include Supergirl in the first part of that crossover, why the fuck are you billing it as a 4-night crossover event? That's stupid and insulting and just... Oh, fuck those guys, man. That's... Oh, god damn. Disaster on another planet. Holy fuck, when I saw he created a whole new set of meta-villains and turned good Caitlin into Killer Frost, then heard he allowed Thawne to create a Legion of Doom, but an alien invasion now was caused by Barry too. What an idiot. Yeah. Yeah. Because apparently dooming all of mankind no less than twice wasn't enough for Barry. Now he has to doom all of life on alien planets as well. Because Barry Allen is history's greatest monster. Apparently when he created Flashpoint, he altered the aliens' history too and caused some disaster or genocide or something. The invasion was because they considered it an act of war. Okay, so question: did the aliens? Do the Dominators have some kind of technology that lets them know when time has been altered somehow? Because how would they even know that the time was that the how would they even know that the timeline was changed? Did they explain that? Yeah, Yeah, I have no idea what Joe was expecting to happen. He could have opened that thing and caused Wally to die like cutting a fetus out of a womb before its time. Yeah, exactly. That's an excellent metaphor. That's what I was going for. It's like, dude, you know what's happening. He's getting powers like everyone else that alchemy affected. There's probably a reason why he's still stuck in there. Like maybe it's to protect him as he changes. Do you want to? Do you cut open a caterpillar's cocoon before it emerges as a butterfly? No, because you would injure the caterpillar and probably cause it to die. It's kind of the same principle here. There's probably a reason why he hadn't come out yet. A good reason. Uh, Also, I called Julian being alchemy. Yeah, everyone did. It was really obvious. I know it's super obvious, but there was another character. But there was another character introduced who could have been alchemy. Not really. I mean, it could have been HR. Nah, I don't know. I don't think they would have gone to the well with Harrison Wells being evil again. And they've done that enough. Guess it would have been nonsensical, which I'm sorry is worse than obvious. No, I would argue. I would say they're equally bad. I think the big hook for the season will be who or what Savitar is. We know he's the god of speed, so he must have some sort of connection to the Speed Force. Well, don't they all have a connection to the Speed Force? And the Speed Force is what chooses to bestow these powers on people. I question why the Speed Force, if this is such a rare and beautiful gift, why the Speed Force chooses to bestow it on a lot of really shitty people. Like Eobard Thawne, like Hunter Zolomon, and so on. But, that's neither here nor there. Appears to have some kind of hidden agenda. Tonight it seems like Cisco was the one responsible. He went back in time with the Legends and saved the Dominator. That causes everything. Cisco sees that he is a hypocrite and forgives Barry. Wait a minute, what? Cisco was the one responsible. He went back in time with the Legends and saved a Dominator, and that causes every... How did that cause everything? I need more information. Yeah, the Dominators said they were only here in the first place because of Barry, so Vibe forgives him for nothing. Vibe didn't cause this, he just interacted with it. Oi. Oh, so Barry doesn't have to work to earn Cisco's forgiveness. He just gets forgiven automatically. So we don't need to milk that for anything anymore, I guess. Hashtag makes it easy. You are right about the writers being lazy. I believe that the live-action DC shows are more about the visual effects as well as the action instead of constantly good storytelling. Yeah, that's becoming more and more obvious, especially on Flash and LOT, which those shows aren't even trying. I mean, Arrow's a little better about this, but it seems like the number one priority on the DC shows is the spectacle. It's like the most important thing is to have like a really cool visual effects sequence or a really cool fight scene or action set piece. And if you have that, if those things deliver, then you don't really need a good story to support it. That's their mentality. What frustrates the hell out of me is that this seems to be a really effective strategy because so many people fall for this shit. I mean, all the time I see people raving about The Flash, raving about how much fun Legends of Tomorrow is, saying how... I mean, are they watching the same shows I am? These shows are... These shows routinely insult your intelligence every single week. You know, but by contrast, S.H.I.E.L.D. has consistently good writing and focuses more on good storytelling than the spectacle, and yet that show gets constantly criticized by people who say it sucks. It makes me feel really alone in my fandom. It just really... It kind of makes me wonder why I even bother sometimes. It really does. Okay, here's a question about Caitlyn. Why did the powers make her evil? Like, they never explain that. Okay, we don't know how she got them. Whatever. How do they work? What is making her become evil? Yes, thank you. That's my point exactly. They never said that. None of the other metahumans had this type of reaction. Okay, with all the other people, they were evil because they were already fucked up people before that happened. Or, like, they turned evil because of circumstance. Or whatever. It was never a case like this. Caitlyn gets powers, and then the powers just magically turn her evil somehow. Why? Why does it happen? How does it work? They didn't bother to explain any of that. And that's why I say this is lazy fucking storytelling. I already outlined in detail how they could have done a Caitlyn turns evil storyline and made it good. And made it work. They didn't even fucking try. There was no build-up for it. None. First 2 seasons had nothing to do with this. Then magically, from out of nowhere, they just Deus Ex Machina some superpowers for Caitlyn that just turn her evil, just like that, because magic. It's fucking insulting. I hate to imagine this, but I think their answer is she's becoming cold-hearted, which is absurd, but sounds like what the writers would say. Yeah, that's pretty much what I thought too. It's like they're saying, oh, cold-hearted isn't just a metaphor; it's literal. She's becoming evil because she's cold-hearted. No, it's like they're writing the show for fucking kindergartners. I swear to Christ. Oh, this show is going to be the end of me. My God. Oh, Christ. If they had taken the time to do Flashpoint right, it would have been a non-issue. Barry was supposed to have everything he wanted, but at the cost was sending the planet to the brink of extinction. You can't use Amazons and Atlanteans, fine. Use Archers and League of Assassins or something. The whole first part of the season would be Flashpoint with Barry having to go back to the past and prevent himself. And I just lost my place. Prevent himself from saving his mom. That would be the mid-season finale, having to wait for the second half of the season to see what changes were made. Yeah, is he right there? You just put more thought into it than the writers did. Man. Oh, boy. I stand by my assessment that Iris was much more likable as the annoying, snarky big sister than as a love interest. I wouldn't say she was more likable. I would say that she was less unlikable. Though not by much. It's like she's acting like Wally's mom or something. Jesus Christ. Is it safe to say that these DC TV shows are catered to a younger audience and not comic fans, hence the lazy writing? Pretty safe, yeah. These shows are really dumbed down. I guess Arrow is the one exception. I think Arrow, the writers are still putting at least some thought into that show. But Flash and Legends of Tomorrow, man, this wow. You really have to turn your brain off to enjoy those shows. Yeah, Flame, that sounds so much better than what they did. Oh my God. Yeah. Supergirl would have made more sense as team leader than Barry, and she is not even from Earth 1. Yeah. Or, hey, Cisco had the right idea. Put Oliver in charge. Isn't he kind of the obvious choice? Nothing happened in Super Blonde. Nothing happened in Supergirl. She just got all sad because people hate aliens or something characteristically PC. Oh, okay. So no reason to watch that then. Thanks. Kenny Omega would have made more sense as team leader than Barry, and he's not even part of the Arrowverse. Kenny Omega as team leader would have been awesome. Kind of strange that they didn't have Wally meet Artemis in this crossover. Even if nothing came from it, it would have still been a cool moment. Yeah, I guess, but the Artemis that was in like the big like romance with Kid Flash on Young Justice, that's not the same Wally. I don't think so. At least I think it's not, because remember, there's two Wallies now. There's the pre-New 52 Wally and the New 52 Wally, and now they both exist in the post New 52. So there's two Wally Wests. There's the original one and the New 52 one. And the original one is the Caucasian redhead, and the New 52 one is the black guy. And they're both Wally West, but they're like cousins or something. And I guess the original one is the one that was with Artemis in Young Justice. Young Justice, I think. Although I could be wrong. I mean, who the hell knows? Maybe maybe this Wally maybe the Arrowverse Wally is supposed to be the original Wally. Now I don't know. Man, I give myself a migraine trying to figure this shit out, man. Okay, and now we know that when he altered the timeline, he caused some kind of genocide on another planet and made them retaliate against Earth. Yeah. So explain to me how we're supposed to root for the Legends of Tomorrow on their show when they're altering the timeline every single week. How do we know that they're not like causing entire galaxies and entire races of people to be blinked out of existence? How do we know that they're not destroying all life in the universe every time they time travel? Because they time travel all the fucking time, and they change the timeline all the fucking time in ways far more dramatic and serious than Barry ever did. They've made a whole show of that. So, by their own logic, the Legends of Tomorrow team are causing catastrophic damage to all of time and space every time they time travel. Right? So how the fuck are we supposed to root for them or even watch the show at all? It's like we're just encouraging them to destroy all life as we know it. I don't want to watch the Legends of Tomorrow time traveling all through time and space. I want to see them stop time traveling because time traveling is causing the universe to literally unravel. They force you to defend Barry. It just shows how evil the Legends of Tomorrow team is. Oh, Jesus Christ. Did they do that? Oh, my God. Ironically, the Legends were the ones who did 90% of the actual important work in the end. They basically saved the human race. Them and Supergirl. Huh. Yeah, that's irony for you. Ironically, I think maybe the one character who came out of this completely unscathed was Supergirl. Because I genuinely liked her in this, and apparently she was the character that basically played no role in the crossover in her own leg of the crossover. I don't even like her. I don't even watch the damn show, Supergirl, and I thought she was one of the more likable people here. Oh God. Cisco has reason to be mad at Barry, but that wasn't the time or place to tell everyone about Flashpoint or the recording. Oliver and Barry were right to wait until the aliens were gone and tell them then. No, because Barry had an actual message from himself in the future saying that Barry cannot be trusted on this mission. So obviously future Barry knows something that present Barry does not. Maybe there's a good fucking reason why he shouldn't be on the mission. Something that they don't know yet. Okay? Keeping that a secret was fucking stupid and idiotic and selfish. He should have told everyone, and he should have removed himself from that mission. Coincidentally, did they explain that? Did they say why Barry couldn't be trusted on the mission? Because he went on the mission. So, obviously, then the reason why he couldn't be trusted would have made itself known. What was the reason? How did they explain that? Let me know in the chat room. Oh, and if that's not the time or place to tell everyone about Flashpoint, then what exactly would be the right time and place? Because Barry doesn't seem to be in any hurry to take ownership of that. Seriously, the only time he ever admits to what happened in Flashpoint is when somebody either says it for him or guilts him into it. Because obviously doing the right thing isn't enough of a reason for him to admit to all that stuff. So what would be the right time and place, in your opinion? Let me know in the chat room. Now, the only thing that makes remote sense with this whole time travel plot is the idea that maybe the Speed Force works on a different time stream than the one the time ship works on. Remote sense, that's being generous, dude. We're apparently supposed to sympathize with Barry accidentally causing an interplanetary genocide, I guess. Oh, fuck. Christ. Yeah, let me guess. Let me guess. Let me guess. Iris probably had a scene with Barry where she told him that the interplanetary genocide wasn't his fault and he shouldn't beat himself up about it, right? Christ. Oh my God. Anytime I think Barry couldn't get more despicable, they prove me wrong. He's nearly ended the entire human race. Twice. Hell, the second time he did it across the entire multiverse. Almost wiped out all life in the multiverse, and now he's expanding to other planets, to other civilizations. He doesn't just want to destroy the human race, he wants to destroy every race in the fucking galaxy. My God. Oh my God. Oh wait, I'm sorry. This was the continued thought. The only thing that makes remote sense with the whole time travel plot is the idea that maybe the Speed Force works on a different time stream than the one the time ship works on. But do not mistake what I just said for being a good excuse on its own. Not until the writers figure out that this is the logistic monster they created and come up with a way to actually explain it. Yeah, don't hold your breath, buddy. Don't hold your breath. I don't believe they have any intention of... I don't believe they have any intention of ever explaining this. I don't think we'll ever see that. Like I said, on their list of priorities, it's spectacle, and then good storytelling is down here. You could pick this shit apart all day long. I can and have picked it apart all day long. There are so many holes in these shows. So many things about the storytelling that just do not track at all. And that list of things just keeps getting longer. It makes sense that the time ships use some mechanical form of time travel while Barry employs a natural elemental force, like the difference between a star's nuclear fusion and the Hiroshima bomb. Oh, dude, don't make excuses for this. So now there's more than one way to time travel, like mechanical time travel and natural element. Oh, dude, there was nothing natural about what happened to Barry. Let's n- they've given themselves. They have more than enough rope to hang themselves. Okay, now they have to hang themselves. Don't give them an out. Okay, please don't make it easier for them. I think angry FK because YouTube gold. I'm glad I could entertain you guys at least. Uh, Being that was supposed to be Oliver's perfect life, wouldn't that mean that Laurel is Oliver's true love and not Felicity? Apparently! Man, I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall when all the Olicity shippers got a load of that because that was that was really interesting. I mean, they even redid the line of "Hey, will you marry me?" Oh, I think I already answered that question. That was a line from the last season between Oliver and Felicity, and now they're redoing it with Oliver and Laurel. So, if this is Oliver's perfect life, then Laurel was his true love the whole time. So, so many of the Olicity people probably wanted to just throw their TV out the window. Oh man. Uh, you made me laugh, my friend. Thank you. Do you think Dig will be angry with Lila for knowing that aliens are real and never telling him about it? Probably not. I mean, Dig's military. He understands compartmentalization, and that kind of stuff is need to know. I'd be surprised if he was upset about that. I love how they try to make White Canary out to be a lesbian, despite the fact that her affair with men 3 times were the most important moments of her life, literally. I I don't think she's technically a lesbian. I think they pretty much spelled it out that she's bisexual and that she prefers women. I think there was a line there said you know I prefer girls or something like that. So she goes both ways and she prefers women, but that doesn't stop her from having a meaningful relationship with a dude should the right dude come along. Um, Wild Dog can blame Barry for once. But him blaming Supergirl for the alien invasion was dumb. She's not even from the Earth One universe. Yeah, did Wild Dog know that? I think that was just Wild Dog being a dick because that's kind of his character. Um, yeah, so I didn't blame him for that. Okay, if he's just mistrustful of metahumans in general, yeah, I get that. They were trying to get info from Team Arrow, apparently using it to figure out how to kill our mutant population. Also, we have 2 million mutants on Earth according to Vibe. Damn. So 2 million metahumans, huh? Well, you think they'd be causing a lot more noise by now. Hell, it seems like most of them are in Star City. It seems like most of them are in Central City. You'd think there'd be more of them popping up by now if there's 2 million of these motherfuckers. I think the woman they were fighting for the tech was Cybergirl. Okay, I have no idea who Cybergirl is. So you would know better than me. The writers said it was a love letter to fans. The crossover was a way to bring everyone back, I guess. Eh. The scene with the ghosts of all the characters before Oliver jumped back was great. It was emotional, but it made no sense. How was it happening? Why did the Matrix allow it to happen? If this Matrix was programmed by the Dominators to keep Team Arrow in the Matrix, why is it suddenly doing something that would push Oliver to do the right thing and leave the Matrix? It was a good moment, but how do you explain it? How do you rationalize that happening in the first place? Once again, it's like it's a cool moment, but without the reasoning to back it up, it doesn't hold water. Dr. Cyber, a Wonder Woman villain. Okay. Dr. Cyber. Wow, that's a corny name. The Smoke Technologies building wasn't really there. It was a flaw in the Matrix caused by the fact that their subconscious knew it was bullshit. Okay, did I just, Did that part just go over my head? You know what? I'll take your word for that one. Doesn't really explain why there's an exit door in the Matrix. I mean, if you want to keep them in there, why give them a way to get out at all? So on a Legends note, this is probably the best episode they've ever done, mostly because they dialed back and Supergirl, Flash, and Arrow casts took over, not the primary one. All right. I'll take your word for that. Of course, bear in mind, LOT has set the bar pretty low. I think the implication, like in ID4, is that our tech is based on Roswell, so their tech and our tech are basically identical on a practical level, but ours is less advanced. That would be one explanation, but unless they actually gave it in the episode, then I don't buy it. Okay, if that's why Curtis has a gizmo that can interface with alien tech, then they need to explain how that works. They didn't offer an explanation. They just said, "Oh yeah, I can plug into the alien tech with this thing that I just happen to have here." Makes it easy. When the Defenders drops, people will see what a real crossover can do. Hell fucking yeah. The Defenders is going to make this look like a pile of puke. One second. Okay. Wow, I gotta speed this up. I've been doing... let's see. How would you define redemption? Redemption is when you pay for or make up for what you've done. Okay. Off topic, have you played a video game based on Tiny Toons? No, I have not. How does Barry redeem himself for everything? Here's a question for you. Is Barry even redeemable at this point? He redeems himself. Well, he tries to redeem himself by taking accountability for what he did, by taking ownership of it. Now, I understand. I was told on Twitter that in this episode, Barry basically tried to offer himself to the Dominators as a sacrifice. Like, take me, leave the rest of the world alone. I'm the one who fucked everything up, so just take me and have that be the end of it. I'm told that he said that he did this, but the rest of the heroes convinced him not to, so fuck them. But if Barry did this, good. Okay, that's him trying to take responsibility for what he did. But in the end, he still gets let off the hook, so it doesn't really count. So once again, Barry is saved from having to pay any real consequences for his actions. And that's what I don't like. That's what's bullshit about it. If he does, will the show end on that note with a new Flash? You know, I wouldn't say no to that. You know, in the comics, they had Wally West take over as the Flash for quite a while. After Barry died, you know, he came back later, but Wally West was the Flash for a long time. If they wanted to do that in this show, I'd be okay with it. You know, they never explained how it worked, but the Dominator leaders said that their world was altered by flashpoints somehow. Yeah, they never explained how it worked, yeah. Yeah, so that right there tells you what you need to know about how high on the list of priorities competent storytelling is. They don't even care to explain a lot of this stuff. They just want to do cool things that don't have the reasoning behind them to back them up. They were scared we would erase their history, so they decided to kill all mutants to make sure that this wouldn't happen. Did they explain how the Dominators know that the timeline was affected in the first place? Because if it works like everyone else, then they would have thought that the changed timeline was the way it had always been. So do they have some kind of technology that would tell them when the timeline had been altered somehow? Did they explain that at least? They said they suffered somehow from it, so my guess is that's some kind of disaster or genocide. God only knows how his mom caused all this. Just her surviving and stuff. Who knows? Man. Ugh. Yeah, God only knows how his mom getting murdered the way she was always supposed to get murdered caused a genocide on an alien planet. How in the blue fuck? Oh. I actually have an idea how the legends don't destroy time. They never leave it. Well, but they're still changing things. Is it time to yell into the pillow? You know, I would, but I feel like I'm starting to lose my voice, and my throat kind of hurts today, so I'll try to rein myself in. When they alter time, they stay till they change it back. They never leave and let it set in stone. Instead, they fix what they did. But that's what Barry did. He altered time, and then he changed it back. And that's what caused all these changes. That's what caused the alien genocide. Him changing time and then changing it back the way it was before. So if that's what the legends are doing, then why isn't this shit happening all the time? What? Do you see how none of this tracks? How none of this makes sense with the fucking... Oh, God. Somehow this basically leaves the past the way it should be. Don't ask me how. I'm saying it seems that way. Oh. By changing things and then leaving, Barry sets time in motion and things change after this, like causing dominoes to fall. But Barry... knocking one over, but not the rest, is different from starting a domino effect. It's crazy, but I think it kind of works in theory. You're right, it is crazy. It would also explain how mechanical time travel works as opposed to natural time travel caused by the Speed Force. Okay, you know what? If that's the way it works, if that's the difference, then I need them to fucking explain it. I need them to explain that there is a distinct difference between mechanical time travel and Speed Force time travel. Because until they offer some kind of an explanation for that, then I'm going to just go ahead and continue thinking that it makes no fucking sense at all, because it fucking doesn't. Broken Matt Hardy would be a better leader than Barry. Yeah. The better comeback this year, Chris Jericho or Matt Hardy. Probably Matt Hardy, because at least I cared about that. Also, thoughts on Connor dropping the featherweight title. I was disappointed. Because they make this big deal out of this being the first time in history that someone has held titles in 2 weight classes, and then they immediately have him drop one of them. Let him fucking keep it for a while. The guy is making history, so let him continue to make it. Let's keep that train going. Hell, it would have been worth doing just for the publicity alone. Would it have held up one of the divisions? Yeah, probably. Hell, Connor pretty much had a monopoly on that division in general, so it's not like you had any compelling opponents for the guy. So they just take the title off him, and that's how they resolve that. It's lame. Okay, by the way, yes, the Dominators implied they had some kind of device to tell them when time changed. They implied that most aliens do, like our time ships. Okay, so they did explain that at least. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, that's good. It's the butterfly effect. If time travel was possible, changing one thing, no matter how small or big, causes all time events to move slightly to the left. Not much, but enough to affect changes. Yeah. It doesn't explain how it could affect an alien civilization so drastically, because how the fuck could it possibly change that? How could the ripple effect, a relatively minor ripple effect, cause something so huge on an alien civilization light years away? To be fair, the producers were saying the crossover didn't start until the end of Supergirl. No, it started with the beginning of The Flash. They just took the beginning of The Flash and attached it to the end of Supergirl. It was a network that decided to bill it as a 4-night event. Well, fuck the network then. That was fucking cheap. Almost similar to the in-the-moment booking style of WWE that can be said about the writing of The Flash. Yeah, that's a pretty accurate assessment. I don't want to turn this into a comic book fanboy war, but do you think Marvel is doing better than DC's live-action TV shows? In terms of quality, yes. Abso-fucking-lutely. No question. Legends is really funny now, though. It's basically a comedy now, or more so, it's closer to like an action comedy. Like Lethal Weapon or Rush Hour. Well, I think they couldn't make it a show to be taken seriously. They burned that bridge, so they might as well make it a comedy, I guess. All right, I'm putting the cutoff point in here, and at which point we're going to switch to S.H.I.E.L.D. because this is already going really long. Let's see. I'm sorry, I gotta get through these faster. Are you watching the Lethal Weapon TV show? No, I'm not. Haven't seen it. Do you think Barry Allen is the real villain of the show? Yeah, it would be hilariously subversive, and I think actually a really brilliant twist if it did turn out that way. But I don't think the show is that self-aware. I really don't. I don't think these writers and producers have any idea of how monstrous Barry actually is. I think they really do think that Barry is a superhero and a good person, and he's not, guys. He's fucking not. He's not remotely sympathetic anymore. Walter White is the most sympathetic person in the world compared to Barry fucking Allen at this point. As for Barry and the idiotic backfires of everything he's done and his waiting until now to bear the full responsibility and the Iris and Oliver trying to excuse him thing, here's the funny thing about it. I actually agree with Iris and Oliver. Barry shouldn't beat himself up over it. He's not qualified to beat himself up because he'd probably fuck that up anyway. Yeah. Thoughts on Young Justice returning? I'm really excited. Young Justice was an awesome show. But right now we don't know anything, and it's going to be it's going to be quite a while before we see any media for it, so it's going to be a wait. Going to be a long wait. What should happen instead is that the Speed Force should punish him for his mistakes by unchoosing him and leaving him absolutely powerless. That would be really cool. I could get on board with that. Then Yujiro would come out with his fan service girls and basically have him mock seduce Barry and strip him of his suit, only to slap him, step on his ribs and heels, and shoot him in the knees. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna have to skip over all these wrestling-related questions because I just don't have the time to get to cover all this stuff. Flashpoint causing the universe to unravel is literally what the Dominator's guy was saying, that Flash caused cataclysms or something and other worlds by altering time. The Legends of Tomorrow alter time every fucking week. Why is this not because of them? Why is this not happening because of them? What Barry did was so fucking minor to what they do every week. After all the damage is done, we add the humiliation, turn him around so he's on his stomach, take a can of spray paint and write Bullet Club for life. The message from future Barry was about how Flashpoint caused the invasion, apparently. Okay. But did it explain how Barry couldn't be trusted on the mission? Because that was the mission. That was the message, that Barry could not be trusted on the mission. So why couldn't he be trusted? Did they explain that? Or was that the implication of what Barry said and the Dominator said later on? Is The Flash being written by WWE writers? Wouldn't surprise me. By the way, the Elite forgave... Oh wait, here comes Oliver. He wants to show up and save Barry from the consequences of his own actions. I guess Mr. Queen hasn't been beaten up enough for his own mistakes by his girls then, huh? Yeah. You think if anybody would insist that Barry take responsibility for what he himself did, it would have been Oliver. Because Oliver is the king of living with the consequences of what he's done. Why is it that Barry always gets off the hook, but Oliver never does? It seems really unfair. Okay, all stuff about the Bullet Club. It's not my fault. One of the most iconic superheroes of all time is now such an idiot. It's actually possible for a street gang to beat him. These CWDC writers are responsible. They deserved it. Yeah. Okay. I mean, Barry changed it, then left, then went back and changed it again. They stay and never let it become the timeline. Yeah. I'm sorry, I just don't buy it. Like I said, it isn't brilliant, but it does work from a mechanical level. Altering the past and staying to prevent their historical changes prevents time alteration wholesale. While Barry changes the past and then returns to the present, setting time back in motion. Time stops basically when you go back until you return to where that came from. I think it's just a theory. Okay, that's a theory, at least. Like I said, until they actually explain how that works. And it would take a fucking labyrinth of explanations to get that to fly. But until they actually explain very clearly how this all works, I'm just gonna call bullshit on it. Okay, you got a theory. Good for you, because that's more than the writers offered us. But I need an explanation from the writers. I need one in the text of the show. Barry Allen, you just made the list. Okay. Yeah. All right. All right, it's after midnight. Good lord. Oh, wow, I was bitching about that for a long time, wasn't I? My throat's starting to hurt. All right. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 4, Episode 7 deals with our devils. Coulson, Fitz, and Robbie are stuck out of phase with reality, or something. So with Robbie on a different plane of existence, slowly getting sucked into God knows where, the Rider possesses Mac, who then goes on a rampage. Meanwhile, May decides that the only way to get their people back is to open the evil book of evil, but they know that could be kind of dangerous, so they compromise and have Ada do it. Because no one on this team has seen Ex Machina, and they still have no problem with giving the human-looking robot chances to turn evil at every single turn. Also, Simmons is dealing with the inhuman brother of that corrupt lobbyist, who can't break out of his cocoon. But you'd think after being stuck in that thing for like 6 months, he'd be long dead, but apparently not. But she helps him break out of it. Apparently being nice to him was all it took. So Fitz and Coulson are saved thanks to Ada sciencing Dr. Strange's sling ring. Robbie takes the Rider back by promising to take out everyone on the Rider's hit list, and Ada is secretly designing a brain for some reason, which will undoubtedly lead to evil. Okay, something that bugged me a little bit about this episode is that there were these big setups for things that either didn't happen or they just took a rain check on. Alright, in the last episode we saw Robbie's Uncle Eli emerge from that pod thing with superpowers. You're looking all evil, and you think that shit's about to hit the fan big time. But here he kills a couple people, and then just quietly escapes. And we don't see him again. Now, he's still in the wind, setting up the mid-season finale next week, but I got the impression that whatever's happening next week was supposed to happen here, and it didn't. It felt like there was supposed to be some big stuff happening with him this week, and it kind of got... It kind of just got put on hold so we could deal with all the stuff that we dealt with here. So instead, we're dealing with what happened to Coulson, Fitz, and Robbie, and this is all good stuff. It is, but it's resolved by the end of the episode. And when you've got 3 people slowly getting sucked into hell or the Dark Force dimension or whatever, it just seemed like they were rescued very quickly without bothering to capitalize on the subplot with Simmons, which they just didn't bother to pay off. And I think a better way to go about this would have been to have Coulson, Fitz, and Robbie not get rescued until the mid-season finale next week. Then they would have had more time to develop these plots and ratchet up the tension a little bit more, or a lot more. And actually make Simmons aware that Fitz vanished and is presumed dead, for crying out loud, because that was a big missed opportunity right there. This is another sticking point. There are a number of scenes here where Mace kind of casually presumes these guys are dead, without even looking into it at all. He's just like, well, it's a tragedy. They're gone. And I'm like, you didn't even look into it, dude. You don't even know what happened. But, yeah, he gets very businesslike, and he says that, oh yeah, I'll be the one to tell Simmons what happened to Fitz. I know how important Fitz is to her. No, you don't need to do that, May. I'll do it. I'll do it, because it'll mean more coming from me. Yeah, sure it will, asshole. So, I thought they were really just setting up Simmons to just go fucking ballistic on this guy. I was really excited to see Simmons' reaction to this. I mean, really excited. I was sitting there with, popcorn and, here it comes. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to just see her completely lose her shit. When Mace tells her that Fitz vanished and he's presumed dead, but that he isn't really looking into it that much. But he needs her to keep it together because the team that trusts is a team that triumphs or whatever, and I wanted to see her flip the fuck out. I wanted to get that role reversal where now it's Simmons who just goes fucking nuts and goes insanely beyond her means to get Fitz back because that's how important they are to each other. We saw Fitz do this last season. And I thought this was the time that we'd see it from Simmons' perspective, finally. And instead, she spends the entire episode dealing with this Inhuman, which is resolved quite easily. Now, I'm sure that'll come up again later on, but, I mean, here it feels like it was just a way to get her off the board for a while. Then, if she was even told that Fitz vanished at all, it happened off-screen, and we never see her reaction until after Fitz is saved. It's like there was potential for something really cool that I've been waiting for there, and they just didn't go for it. Instead, they spend a lot of time focusing on the Coulson-May stuff, which is a relationship that's not even close to happening yet. And hey, look, I'm happy for the Felinda fans. They're finally getting a bone thrown their way. So, you guys waited a long time for that, so enjoy. Okay? Just enjoy. I'm happy that they're finally getting something. But I feel like focusing on Simmons' reaction instead would have packed a much bigger emotional punch than this did. But while that stuff is an issue, there are a lot of cool things here too. I thought it was a pretty interesting storytelling device to show the first 10-15 minutes with the team not knowing what happened to their people, and then rewind the clock and show the whole thing again from Coulson, Fitz, and Robbie's perspective, which makes you see a lot of things differently. That was a really interesting narrative choice. Because now it's like, oh wait, Mac's not just pissed off. It was completely reasonable that he would be, but he's actually doing this because he's possessed by the Rider. That's a much bigger problem. And Mac was actually pretty badass as Ghost Rider, too. I almost wish they would continue for a while with that. Especially now that Robbie has to make another deal with the devil just to get him off the hook. Oh, poor Robbie. That's not going to be good for anyone. I also like how they're starting to color Mace with a lot more shades of gray. He's very quick to write off Coulson, Fitz, and Robbie, and that's him being detached, which you probably have to be to do this kind of thing. But he didn't even want to look into it until the others kind of prodded him. And then Fitz finds out that he sent Simmons on this shady mission by herself, and that he can't really get her back now and has no control there, which again makes Mace look pretty questionable. But it would have felt more powerful if the mission she was on had actually been dangerous. But it was actually kind of relaxed. She got taken out of there before anything really happened. Okay, she talked to the Inhuman, she got him to hatch out of the cocoon, and then she gets taken away. If there was any danger, she didn't see any. It was a shady mission, but it wasn't really dangerous. I'm sure we'll revisit that soon, but for the time being, it just goes to show that focusing on Simmons' perspective and her being frantic to get Fitz back would have been the more compelling way to structure this, because we're seeing Fitz worry that Simmons might be in danger when she's really not, instead of seeing Simmons worrying about Fitz as him, Coulson, and Robbie slowly get sucked into this abyss of eternal darkness. Mace still comes out of it looking like a detached asshole. I just think there were more riveting ways that they could have showed this. But the most interesting development for me is the stuff with Ada. Everyone knows she's an android now, and she's proved how useful she can be here by saving the day and pulling Coulson and Fitz out of wherever the hell they were. So S.H.I.E.L.D. is probably going to trust Ada now when she's starting to secretly look like she's going dark. And let's face it, as a robot, she wasn't going to be affected by the Darkhold the same way a human would. That was sound reasoning, but that doesn't mean that she wasn't affected at all. There could be something dark and evil lurking inside of Ada now. So, if this is beginning a storyline about a robot corrupted by dark magic, just think about all the stuff they could do with that. And I always find it so interesting when genres kind of crisscross like that. That's what I was hoping to see this season, the magic versus technology stuff. And if they're thinking of combining them into one crazy hybrid threat, that they could do some really cool things. And have some really interesting stuff in the works there. And with Mac, too. There's a really interesting cliffhanger with him. What did that little note he had mean? Is the Rider out of him completely? Because he still looked like he wanted to take vengeance on somebody at the end there. It looks like a big storyline for Mac. here. Ain't nothing wrong with that. That's he's overdue to get something big to chew on there. Um, so to finally wrap all this up, I don't think this episode made all the right storytelling choices. Like I said, I think it was a mistake to keep Simmons away from the A plot. It would have been a lot more compelling if she'd been heavily involved in getting the guys back, because that's where the emotional gut punch would have come from. No offense to May, but she's hardly the most emotive character on the show. And her hard exterior may have cracked more than we usually see it when she really wanted to get Coulson back, so much so that she thought opening the Darkhold was the best way to go. But nevertheless, if they wanted a character to rip the viewers' hearts out in this situation, it wasn't going to be May, it was going to be Simmons. I was more emotionally affected by her and Fitz's 10-second hug at the end than I was anything else here. No offense to May, I like May, but let's face it, she's eternally stoic, and Simmons is the more vulnerable and emotive type. Still, we got some cool cliffhangers with Mac and Robbie and Ada, and the show is continuing to break new grounds and push into new territory creatively, which I'm a big fan of. There were a couple narrative decisions here that I didn't think were the most interesting ways to go. I wouldn't have had Simmons. I would have had Simmons more involved and waited until next week to rescue Coulson, Fitz, and Robbie. I think that would have been a better way to go, a more compelling way to go. But it certainly wasn't a bad episode, especially compared to what Flash did. It still managed to set the stage for what looks like an interesting mid-season finale, if that promo was any indication. So it probably got it probably got kind of a slow start, just because of the narrative choices weren't the most compelling ones. I do think they did some really cool things here, regardless. Okay. I really like Ada. I hope they don't make her a villain. Plus, it would be as predictable as Julian being alchemy, in my opinion. Would it be predictable? Probably. Not in the same way, though. Here, it's like you're taking an innocent character and developing her into a villain, whereas the Julian and alchemy thing, it's like you've got a villain and this seemingly innocent character, and the whole time you're pointing to the seemingly innocent character and being like, yeah, he's evil, he's evil, he's evil, he's evil. Wait for it, wait for it. They're going to reveal that he's evil, and then they reveal that he's evil, and it's meant to be a surprise. Okay, with Ada, yeah, she was probably always turning evil, but it wasn't meant to be a surprise. It was meant to be an organic development. And that's where I'm a lot more, in that sense, I'm a lot more forgiving of the way S.H.I.E.L.D. is handling Ada. I was shocked that Ghost Rider was an actual demon and not an inhuman. I mean that genuinely shocked. It just seems so obvious that it never made any sense that he'd be a real demon. Really, man? To me, it seemed obvious that it never made any sense for him to be an inhuman. Because they've gone to that well. Because the stuff that you were suggesting, that he just thinks he made a deal with the devil, but he's actually an inhuman, it's basically the same thing they did with Yo-Yo. She thought her powers were from God, but no, she's actually an inhuman. Well, it's like, well, why would they do the same story twice when it's so much easier, not to mention more accurate to the comics, to do it this way? It's so much more interesting that way. I never really understood your reasoning there. That's going to mess with Mac's head. He is a righteous guy, and the fact that a demon took him over should give his character new development. Yeah, it's going to be fun to see how Mac reacts to that, because he's one of the most moral and level-headed characters in this cast, and to have him be temporarily possessed by by the spirit of vengeance, that's the kind of thing that could make him really go off the deep end and just really unravel. Ada's going to become Jocasta. Maybe, who knows? I have no clue for what hope for 1816 means. Yeah, well, something happened on that date that has some kind of special significance for Mac. I have to go back and I can check the dates to see if that corresponded to an episode. Maybe there's some precedence for this in the canon. Maybe they were setting this up, or maybe it's something we don't know. Maybe it's like a secret that he's been. Maybe it's a dark secret or something that he's been keeping. I don't know. It's a mystery. Yeah, I know who Eli is. They actually kind of did good with his origin. Molecule Man. Molecule Man? I have no idea who he is. He's a nutcase who uses a crystal wand like he had here to manipulate matter on a molecular level, very powerful, like Silver Surfer level. Best guess is they'll need to call in something big to kill him, like Black Bolt. Cue Inhumans movie. Well, Inhumans is going to be a TV show now, not a movie. I don't think Robbie's uncle is Molecule Man in the comics. I've never heard of Molecule Man, actually. Maybe they're trying to combine the two villains into one. Wouldn't be the first time. They kind of did that in Iron Man 2. So who knows? Maybe. Yeah, I mean, they said in the promo, Coulson was like, we gotta roll out our big guns. We got Quake, we got Yo-Yo, and we got Ghost Rider here. So we're gonna just put them all together and throw them at Uncle Eli, and maybe that'll take him down. Who knows? So they're getting all their big guns ready. The boxes were used to create the portal. If you look closely, the boxes are on the outside of the portal. Yeah. Yeah, she was still doing all that, the colored energy things that looked like the stuff they were doing in Doctor Strange. If you compare the two, it's actually pretty similar. So that was an interesting subtle nod to Doctor Strange there. It actually did look like the sling ring stuff, where it's like, yeah, portal, magic. Yeah. Wonder if the Dark holds a missing book in the library in Doctor Strange. Ooh, that would be a fun way to explain that. Cool tie-in there. What would she do if he... some of the physics that went into here actually are real or hypothetical, which is why I thought Ghost Rider would be an Inhuman and not Demon. All right. The whole box thing is a void bubble tesseract folding a pocket of space in on itself to create a huge inside region with a tiny outer area. All right. And he guesses who the new Inhuman is. No idea. My guess is he's probably a new character. I was thinking Inferno for a second there, but then I thought, you know what, we already had 2 fire guys this season. We don't need another one. So yeah, I'm thinking he's probably a new character. But we'll see. Mace wasn't evil though. He clearly was upset that Simmons was out of reach. Yes. That doesn't mean that sending her on that mission by herself wasn't shady, and it doesn't absolve him for losing control of the situation. And apparently not really doing a whole lot to resolve it. No, it resolved itself when Simmons was returned by the people who had her. Like I said, they're coloring him with shades of gray. He may not technically be evil, but he's not really squeaky clean in this situation either. Yeah, the guy in the stone that Simmons opened up. Yeah, no idea who he is. We know his last name because he's that lobbyist's brother. I can't remember the lobbyist's name for the life of me. So I could look it up, but this stream has gone on long enough as it is. Have you got the chance to see the new Taylor Hendricks vignettes in the ROH YouTube channel? Yeah, I've seen them. They're pretty over the top, actually. And it really does. They kind of feel out of place on ROH. But hey, at least they're trying something. Like literally any attempt they make at actual storytelling, I'll accept gladly, even if it's a little off base. I figure he's supposed to be something like a new Lash or one of those things. Yeah, maybe. Who knows? Boy. My throat's starting to hurt. Evos or something like that. At any rate, they're kind of mutant inhumans who have more powers or something, and maybe something like that. Do you watch epic rap battles of history? Yes, I do. They're super entertaining. I'm a big fan of those. Neos. They're called like super mutants. They're involved with the X-Men. Well, if they're involved with the X-Men, they're probably off limits. Is that a better reveal of someone turning bad with Ada as opposed to Caitlyn? Well, at least with Ada, it makes sense. At least with Ada, there's a logical chain, and you can see how one thing causes another. You see, oh yeah, she turned evil because she was exposed to the evil book of evil. If that's how that happened. With Caitlyn, there is no explanation. She just gets powers and then just boom, she's evil. Because the powers made her evil somehow for reasons that are never explained. With Ada, at least, if this is how she turns evil, then you understand how it happened. With Caitlyn, they don't explain shit. And stuff about Neos. I don't know what Neos are. Yeah, if they're involved with the X-Men dude, then they're probably off limits because they don't have the license. They don't have the rights to use the X-Men. Those are with Fox. So all the X-Men and all the characters associated with them, they're with Fox, and Marvel can't use them. See, Rosemary is champ. Yes, she is. What happened to the comic show? What happened to comic show Supergirl? Isn't that show starting its third season soon? It will start its third season next season. Right now, it's in its second season. The powers made Caitlyn cold-hearted, literally, because Flash is set in Equestria, apparently. Yeah. Well, wouldn't it just be fucking typical if that's all the explanation they ever give for why Caitlyn turns evil? Yeah, she's cold-hearted. You know, I hate to be that guy, but if Caitlyn was cold-hearted, if she had a heart of ice, wouldn't she just, like, die? Because if her heart was made of ice, like, wouldn't it stop beating? You know what? I put enough thought into this. Fuck that storyline. It's fucking stupid. S.H.I.E.L.D. was alright here, despite the narrative choices I didn't agree with. Flash was insulting. Arrow was good. Arrow had some good elements to it, but the elements related to the crossover still sucked. And apparently the whole resolution to the fucking crossover was just, again, just really insulting. And I'm glad I didn't watch it. And I'm glad this whole stupid Heroes vs. Aliens crossover is over now, so I can finally stop fucking talking about it. And you know what? That's going to be it. I haven't eaten anything all day, so I'm going to go do that now. Thanks everybody for joining me. My voice is dying out, so I gotta stop this. The Impact stream should be on Saturday around the usual time, sometime in the afternoon. Anyway, thanks for joining me. Thanks for all the questions, and thanks for clarifying a few things about the crossover for me, since I didn't see parts 1 or 4. And apparently watching part 1 was just fucking pointless because it wasn't even part 1 anyway. So good talk tonight. You helped me get a few things off my chest. Why don't you do Supergirl reviews? Because I don't watch Supergirl. That's the last question. Why don't you do Supergirl reviews? Yeah, I don't watch Supergirl. I watched a few episodes in season 1. I just wasn't into it. If you like it, okay, fine. But the show is not for me. It's not catered to me, and that's fine. It doesn't have to be. It's a show for little girls. Okay, I'm glad they've got a show with a protagonist that's for them. But the show just doesn't appeal to me personally. So that's why I don't watch Supergirl. Okay, and that'll be it. I will talk to you guys on Saturday for the Impact stream. In the meantime, peace out. And I'm going to go try to relax because I'm feeling kind of stressed out after venting so much about this fucking crossover. Good night, everybody. Talk to you later.